Welcome back to All This Math. This is Professor Parker, and for this next problem, we're going to do a perimeter word problem. All right, a perimeter word problem. The actual word problem is found in the description underneath of this video, so you can read along while I read the problem out loud. All right, now my recommendation is for students to read word problems at least 3 times. So I'm going to read it once, right? Feel free to pause the video, right? You read it one time, and then let some of the information process, and then you read it again, let some of the information process, and then read it a third time. All right. But the problem reads as follows. Cameron is digging up a section of grass to plant a vegetable garden. The garden will be 30 feet long and have a perimeter of 80 feet. How wide will the garden be? So I like these problems. This problem is a little different from the typical perimeter problems that you'll run into, where you're given the length and you're given the width of the rectangle, and your job is to use the formula for perimeter to figure out what the perimeter is. In this particular problem, the problem tells you what the perimeter is, and it also tells you one of the dimensions. It tells you the length because it says that the garden will be 30 feet long. So long, that applies to length. Long, length, they go hand in hand. Those two words, long and length, go hand in hand, right? Now, how wide? Wide and width, wide and width. Those words go hand in hand, right? So let's start out just like if this was an area problem, right? If it was an area problem, you would start out with the formula for area. Write that down on your paper. A equals L times W. Also, it's relevant what shape of the, what is the shape of the figure we're dealing with. We're dealing with a, let me see. Well, it doesn't actually say that this is a rectangular garden, but we can make that assumption. We can make that assumption because we're given length and we're told to find how wide it will be. All right. Even though if I created this problem originally, I would have been more clear. I would have been more specific, indicating that this was a rectangular garden, but that's me. But anyway, the show must go on. So first, let's write down the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. So the formula for a perimeter of a rectangle, because when you do problems like this, you always want to start out with a formula, because your formula is like your recipe, sort of. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's your set of instructions. It's a set of rules that you use in order to solve a problem. All right, so you start out with your formula. So the formula for the perimeter is going to be P, which stands for perimeter, is equal to 2L plus 2W. All right, now that's a condensed formula. You might see somebody that might just say, you know, L plus W plus W. You also could say it that way if you wanted to. All right. But I like this formula, P equals 2L plus 2W. All right. Then from there, you go back to the word problem and you look and see what information do I already know. So I know that the length is 30. So this letter L stands for length. In the next step, we're going to replace that with the number 30. We're going to replace that with the number 30. Now be careful. 2L means 2 times L, right? When you're doing multiplication with a number or a coefficient and a variable, you don't need to put a multiplication sign in between. So when you replace L with 30, make sure you don't just write it as 230, because that's not what it is. That ain't what it is at all. 2L means 2 times L. So when you replace the L with 30, that becomes 2 times 30. 2 times 30. Make sure you replace it as 2 times 30, not 230. It's not 230. You're not creating a new number, right? You're creating a multiplication expression. Instead of 2 times L, which is what this means, you're doing 2 times 30. So also we know the perimeter. The perimeter is 80. P stands for perimeter. So now in our next step, we're going to replace everything that I know. So I know what P is and I know what L is. So let's write it over again. So let's do 80 is equal to 2 times 30 plus 2W. That's our new equation, right? So that's our new equation. All right. So 80 is equal to 2 times 30 plus 2W. Now, our goal is to solve for W. We want to get W all by itself. That's what it means when we solve for something. We solve for something, we get it all by itself on one side of the equal sign. So this is the right side of the equal sign. So all this other stuff got to go. This, and this 2. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify 2 times 30. And I'm going to do that math and I'm going to get 60. So then I'm going to have 80 is equal to 60 plus 2W. Right, so 80 is equal to 60 plus 2W. Right, then I'm going to get rid of the 60. Right, I got to get rid of 60 and get rid of 2. The way I get rid of 60 is by subtracting 60 on each side. How do I know to subtract? Because that's the opposite of a positive. If you just have a positive number just kind of just sitting there, the opposite of that is subtracting it to get rid of it. So I'm gonna do minus 60 on both sides of the equation because you gotta be balanced. We gotta stay balanced. So math and algebra specifically teaches us how to be balanced individuals and more balanced human beings from practicing and applying the principles of algebra. It gets into our subconscious. Trust me, it does. I'm trying to tell you. All right? It don't mean that we won't slip up and be imbalanced sometimes, but at least, you know, it's pushing us in that direction. So subtract 60 on the right, subtract 60 on the left. 80 minus 60 gives you 20. You got 20 is equal to 2W. Now I'm trying to get W by itself. I got to get rid of this 2. Now, I'm not going to subtract that 2. I can't anyway, because 2W minus 2, those aren't like terms. You can't subtract 2 from 2W. You always do the opposite operation from what the thing that you're trying to get rid of, the number that you're trying to get rid of is involved in already. 2W means 2 times W. The word times means multiply. So that means in order to get rid of 2, I got to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I got to divide. I got to divide by 2 on the right side. I got to divide by 2 on the left side. I got to keep everything balanced. Notice how I'm balanced. I subtract 60 on the right, subtract 60 on the left. I divide by 2 on the right, I divide by 2 on the left. Stay balanced, stay balanced. What's 2 divided by 2? 1. 1W over 1 is just W. What's 20 divided by 2? 10. Gotta know your division facts. 10 equals W, so that means that the answer to this problem is that the garden, if it has a perimeter of 80 feet, and it's gonna be 30 feet long, it would have to, in order to satisfy this and be this perimeter, it would have to have a width of 10 feet. Let me put FT right there. Yeah. It would have to have a width of 10 feet. It would have to. There's no way around that. All right. According to the formula for perimeter. And again, whenever you do problems like this, always start out with your formula. Start out with your formula and then plug in all the numbers that you know. And then simplify to solve for W. Now, another way we could do it, right? This is the algebraic way, right? What we could have did is thought about it like this, right? I should have drew a picture, right? Pictures are good because they help you to visualize, right? Help you to visualize. So we draw a picture. We know the perimeter is 80. So we know that this plus this plus this plus this, they all add up to 80. And we know that the length is 30. So we know that this is 30. And we know that this is 30, right? So we know the whole thing, perimeter equals 80, right? So if this plus this is part of that 80, 30 and 30 gives you 60. So then you say to yourself, okay, well, what does this got to be? If these two together are 60, then I know the whole thing is 80. If I want to figure out what these two missing pieces are, then why don't I just subtract 60 from the 80 and figure out what's left over? 80 minus 60 leaves me with 20. I also know that this is a rectangle, and I got to know a little something about geometry and how rectangles are set up. Rectangles have 2 pairs of congruent sides. Just like both of these sides are 30, both of these sides gotta be the same too. So if these are 60, take the 60 away from the 80, that leaves you with 20, right? Minus 60 leaves you with 20. So that means that these two sides gotta add up to 20. And at the same time, again, I'm telling you, it's like a game, it's a puzzle, that's all it is. It ain't that difficult, don't get scared of math. It's just a game, it's just a bunch of different games. And the games get more complex, right? As you learn more and more skills, right? And more formulas, right? So if these two must add up to 20 and they got to be the same, then you ask yourself, what does this dimension have to be? It's only one number that can be multiplied or added to itself to get 20. 10. 10 plus 10 is 20, right? A lot of numbers can add up to 20, but it's only one number that can be added to itself to equal 20. That's the number 10. So that means that this would have to be 10 and this would have to be 10. So that's another way to do it. So even if you ain't know, but you still would have to know the formula for perimeter, a little bit about the formula for perimeter of a rectangle. But if you ain't know how to do all the algebra and everything, which is cool, you should learn the algebra, but you could also figure this out kind of intuitively by drawing a picture and just kind of looking and saying, okay, I know this is 30 and that's 30. What do these two have to be? If the whole thing adds up to 80. If the whole thing adds up to 80, you know, what do these two have to be? You know what I mean? And this also teaches you budgeting. See, this is another thing too. Like when people say, math is irrelevant or what do I need to learn this for? These formulas help you with budgeting because you can think about it like this. Let's say you need to purchase something or you have a bill that's $80, right? You got $30 and $30, so you got 60, right? And you need to figure out how much more money you still need, right? It's a practice, right? So you do 80 minus 60, which leaves you with 20, right? Well, let's say you're trying to budget for the week. Like how much can you afford to spend, right? If it's 2 more days until payday and you want to know how much can I spend on lunch, because I don't have no more money, or at least I don't have any more money available because I'm trying to adhere to a budget, right? How much can I spend until payday if it's 2 more days? If I know I got $20 left available, I do 20 divided by 2, which gives me 10. So these skills are very transferable. All right, that's all I was trying to say. But yeah, perimeter word problems. All right, so go get some practice, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.